Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Pro Radio Show. I'm your host, Amber Arms, and we have with us today Keriann Blumenstock from Berks County. Hey, Keriann, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on today. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for asking. Now, just to give our, listeners a little bit of an interview as far as who you are, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you about?
Yeah, sure. So I originally grew up in Philadelphia, Mayfair section of Philadelphia, Northeast. Go Birds, and go Phillies. And so I originally lived there, and then we eventually did move to Berks County at a younger age. Now I reside in Bristol Borough. I just recently actually purchased my first home. As a real estate agent, that's a big deal. So very happy with that.
Congratulations. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like when you do this business and, you can't relate to your clients that way, it's definitely, I'm very much more relatable now than ever before, just knowing the process myself. And, I like to tell people, like, straight up, I bought a house in this crazy market, so I wouldn't have done that if I didn't feel like, it was worth it. And I reside in Bristol Borough now, and I have two cats. Their names are Tully and Tito. And yes, that is a reference to alcohol. I keep myself fun over here with my two cats. My parents always tell me, I can only have two cats. No husband will want to marry me if I have any more than two. So I keep it at two. And I went to Berks County. I went to Bensalem High School growing up. I graduated from Temple University in 2015 with a degree in media studies and production. So I did a lot of work in television for a while until I decided to make the switch over to real estate, and I've been doing this about 5 years now.
Wonderful. Now, what really kind of drove you to make the switch? If you're in television, what really inspired you to switch to real estate?
At first, it was definitely that I just wasn't, getting the connections I really felt like I was looking for in television and production. It's definitely a difficult field to get into, and it's definitely hard to make a living off of it. I was doing a lot of freelance, television and weddings and things like that, and I just didn't feel fulfilled the way that I kind of wanted to. So I definitely feel like I take my television background and media background and use it to my advantage in real estate, which I think has definitely helped me succeed. So those are, I definitely don't regret it, but I'm really happy where I am now. So, yeah.
100%. I can definitely see that. So when you were deciding, what really stuck out to you about real estate? Why did you pick that one specifically? Was it just something that came up and was an idea, or was there a particular reason that you went for real estate in particular?
Yeah, so as a new agent, I always, when I talk to new agents, I'm always like, find a mentor. Those are so important, and I was so lucky enough to have a mentor before I even needed a mentor in real estate. So my aunt, she's been an agent in Berks County for 20 years, and, there was a life-changing experience happening in my life at the time, and she was like, stop moping around, stop crying, we're going to fix this, and, she got me into something that she saw something in me, and I'm really happy she, went for it and pushed me to get into real estate, but I definitely owe my career to her. She's been a mentor from the beginning and still is today. So without her, I don't think I could have continued or done this in general. So, I owe a lot of my business to her.
Oh, absolutely. A good mentor always goes a long way, especially in these experience-based fields when you're first getting started. Having somebody who has that knowledge and has been involved in this industry really goes a long way. I'm in insurance, so I understand completely how that can be. And then, you mentioned that she's been in the business for a long time. Do you think that really helped you going through, the market shifts that we saw over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, she has always been the type that, built her business off relationships, and she's a very highly referred real estate agent. That's mostly where she gets her bread and butter from is, past clients, family and friends, people who just, push her name out because they really do respect and appreciate her work. So, she taught me that from the very get-go. She always said, those kind of extra people, those people who come to you are like cupcakes, like they're just like your little extra sugar. You get them automatic. Like, when you work hard and you do what you love, those people come to you. But she also taught me like the grits of just grinding it out and finding a, purpose and kind of just a lifestyle behind here and really finding the people I want to work with. So, she's been really great at just, getting me to work hard, work long hours, which I absolutely did in the beginning here. And, all those things to get me to be able to get my cupcakes, that come naturally now.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. And, we're kind of getting into the end of, 2022 here. What would you say, just wild predictions here, because I know it's impossible to say for sure. How would you say that our, even 2023 market is looking at? Are we going to continue in the direction that we've been going, or do you think that there might be a shift coming?
Yeah, so here's my thing, is I thought, I feel like I've been in the business for 5 years. Do I miss 2018? Absolutely. The years of seller's assist and not multiple offers, that was great. And it was really great to walk into an industry that way. But I'm happy that my first few years were 2020, 2021. And the reason being is, everybody was like, this is the worst year in real estate. And then that year ended, and now we're in the next year, and they're like, this is the worst year in real estate. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, for me, I never feel like it's the worst time in real estate or like a bad time to buy a house. And that's just my opinion. I mean, and, my opinion, I feel like goes a long way, as I just bought my own house in April. So, I was in the nitty grit of this market that was tough. But, I try to, the most important thing is just to set people's expectations up ahead of time. I think as long as you know what's in front of you, you're going to, the process of purchasing and the process of buying, no matter what time of year it is or no matter what kind of market we're in, as long as you're educated and you know what you're doing, you will get what you want. And, that's how I look at each year that comes up. It's just, everybody's reasoning on purchasing are different. Everybody's seasons of life are different. So, it's not so much for me. I don't feel like the market last year versus this year is going to be much different. I know that's difficult to hear, but you're purchasing at a higher sale price with a lower interest rate, and now you're purchasing at a more mediocre sale price with a higher interest rate. So I know interest rates are the question everybody's kind of running through their heads right now, but for me, you're going to be happy in 6 months that you got that interest rate you did. If it goes up and if it goes down, then you have another opportunity to kind of refinance. And, I never think that purchasing, I've never sold someone a house that said, oh my God, I can't believe I bought this house. This was such a bad investment. I just don't think that I see real estate that way. Owning properties is never a bad call, especially, if it's your first home and you're just getting yourself in the door. I think in 5-10 years, depending on how long you need to hold it, you will see your investment come back. And that's what I need people to look at more in the long run of what this will look like in years to come.
Oh, 100%. And I like how you mentioned about the interest rates too. I've spoken with a lot of different agents with different perspectives on it, and I really come back to looking at, the history of real estate, because it's a very cyclical market. It kind of goes in cycles. And historically, we've had much, much higher interest rates than we do right now. I mean, in the 80s, we had double digits for our interest rates. They were in the teens, and that was significantly worse than it is right now. And then, we also look at where, people were talking about how 2020 and 2021 were the worst markets. Well, if you actually look at the numbers, yes, the number of sale prices were down for 2020, but not as much as probably people expected them to be. Like, take this with a grain of salt because I don't 100% remember where I had read it, but when we looked at it, on average, usually you get about like 4.2 million house sales for that year, and we were only down about 750,000. And with the way people were talking, it really sounded like, oh, wow, we've only sold like half the number of houses we usually do. But looking at it, it was actually a lot closer than people really expected, I think, based on how people were reacting to the market.
Yeah. I think a lot of people need to hone in on not like the real estate market as a whole and just focus on yourself, because everybody's reasoning on purchasing is different. And I think at the end of the day, you know, those types of, you know, people are always, I hate to be like the bad news, but people die. People have life changes where they have babies or they get divorced. There's all those things that will always happen. And if we, you know, if you don't focus on that as well, not the big picture of, oh my God, interest rates or, oh my God, sale prices, you know, in the grand scheme of things for me, like I did sell people homes over asking in the last year or so, but a lot of those people felt that they were going to be in that house for 20 years. So paying $20,000 over or $10,000, you know, whatever that number was, it made sense to them in the grand schemes of things for 20 years. So, you know, everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's situations are different. So I think that if you focus in on that and just focus on why you're buying, then it will make more sense. And that's just what I think people need to do more of, is not read the news, read the articles. I understand it's important to be educated, but I think it's more important to be educated in the reasoning for you and where you want to buy and those kind of things rather than the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, everybody has their own situations too, right? Like how you had mentioned on how life events happen, but also people are in different financial situations. It could be the best market that people have seen for 7 years, but if they don't have the financials to be able to support buying a house, they're not going to be able to buy one. And then the vice versa is always true, right? It could be what people are considering the worst market that they've seen for a decade, but if they have all their ducks in a row where they can actually buy a house, then they're going to probably buy one anyway. It's really honestly more of a micro situation than a macro for most people. Like, just in general, right? Because everybody's situation is different.
Yep. And I go to say that with real estate agents as well. You know, I can talk to one agent who's saying, I'm doing really great. I'm, you know, honed in. I'm focused on my people. And you also have the same person in your office that's a worrywart and says this is the worst market in the world and they can't get any sales. It's definitely about your mindset as well. So, you know, you have to think about those things as well in you know, in this industry.
100%. And I think there's also something to be said that if somebody can, you know, find a way to be successful in the tougher times of the market, you know, how everybody was mentioning about how it's really bad. If somebody can actually, you know, get their feet off the ground and do well in that type of situation, it's only going to get easier from there, right? At that point, it's silver lining, right? If you can find a way to be successful at the worst of times, you're going to be really successful when, you know, the market's doing well.
Yeah, which is definitely how I've felt over the past, you know, 5 years. I've been increased my business every year and then some. So, you know, I know as much as people say, oh my God, this is the worst, you know, I'm always like, when's the worst coming? Because I haven't gotten there yet. And you know what, I don't want that to ever happen, but, you know, I try to keep my head down and think to myself, you know what, if you can do it now, you can do it, you know, at any time. So it's just, you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to exactly. Yeah,
it's all perspective. People that started into real estate when the market was doing very well and it was fairly easy, obviously this is going to be a very tough market for them because they're not used to having to put the nit and grit in when it's really tough. But people who learn when the conditions are more difficult will just absolutely flourish when we go back into, you know, kind of that cycle where it's a little bit easier. And it is a cycle. I mean, we had the major crash of '08, and people were worried that we weren't going to recover from that. But just a couple years later, and things were booming again, right? So It's all a matter of perspective. We always end up coming back to that equilibrium at some point.
Yep, you got it.
Now, when you first started, what would you say is the most difficult part of getting into the industry? Like, what did you find the trickiest when you first transitioned?
I would say, of course, I did not have those relationships that I have now in the beginning. And, I think that's the most important part, is to be relatable and to be, approachable. And, I definitely felt like I had those things, just not in a sense of, it's almost, I always felt almost like a little bit of like a faker almost, like, it's hard to pass that, because when you're starting a new career or you're starting something new, imposter syndrome is so like in front of your face when you start, especially in this industry with, a lot of personalities and a lot of, people in front of you with their numbers, and you're just not there. So for me, I was definitely, I have a wonderful office that I work with. They're great. There's 250, 300 of us. And, in the beginning, it's intimidating. You meet all these agents who are doing so well, and then you also meet those new agents who off the bat boomed and they're killing it, and they're, selling all these houses, and, you're not. And I think that is one of my biggest things that I feel like I've been able to accomplish over the years, is just that I've been able to steadily grow consistently, not, I would say quietly, like not as, in front of your face, blow up right in front of everybody. So, and for me, my biggest thing, like I said, just kind of, I always tell people, fake it till you make it. And that's kind of like my saying now is, you have to fake it till you make it. And, I, use a lot of resources inside my office that help me grow and not so much fake it, but make it. And, just figuring out how to represent buyers correctly, being educated. So, I think for me, that was my biggest thing, is just like getting off the ground of being like, I'm a realtor, I'm a brand new agent, and, transitioning into being, I'm a resource. I'm, a resource to the neighborhood. I'm an expert in the neighborhood. So, getting from one end to another, I'm still growing. I'm still learning, of course, every day. But, becoming that resource to me is what I felt turned me from, new agent to not seasoned, because I don't feel like I'm still seasoned, but of more of a professional, because I looked at it in a different perspective. I didn't look at it, I'm selling houses. I looked at it as I'm this massive resource to, people in my neighborhood, clients that I've sold to, past clients, new clients. So I think that once I was able to kind of turn that around, I was able to kind of be successful in this.
This episode is brought to you by We Insure Center of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. With access to over 200 carriers, We Insure is ready to service all of your insurance needs for home, auto, business, life, and more. Simply call 484-207-6640. Again, that's 484-207-6640, or visit WeInsureCenter.com. Get your free quote today. Oh, 100%. I can see how that would definitely be the case, especially, it's such an experience-based industry, too, that when you're first starting out, there's so many different situations and circumstances that you've never worked with or experienced. My mom's a real estate agent as well, so I've kind of seen what she had to go through when she first started. And, a lot of the education that you do and the testing that you do to get your license, it doesn't really prepare you for
Not
actually doing the business on a day-to-day basis.
I took that test 7 so if anybody can tell you that test is not a contributing factor to what kind of agent you can be in the future, it's like so adamant. Like, I took that test so many times, and, it was so tough for me to pass. And once I was able to pass it, I see myself as a good agent. So, it is crazy how different, that test is versus what, reality of being an agent looks like.
Oh, 100%. There's so much memorization. Like, they had so much legal stuff in there where, like, it's important, but most of it you don't end up using on a day-to-day basis. Like, I don't need to know the very specific definition of, what a real estate short sale is. Like, you don't
Sure.
need to know the specifics of that unless you're specifically going into that subgenre of real estate agents. So
Yep.
I always found that fascinating. I could definitely see how that would be intimidating too. Just going into, especially with an office as large as yours, I'm sure that you had some really, really impressive agents in there that just absolutely exploded. It can be tough because you feel like you have to compare yourself to them and their success, and everybody has their own path that they go on to, and sometimes slow and steady is the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, like, my office, it is a very big office, but I've found my core people within my office, I would say. And like you had said, like, there's just so much learning involved in real estate. I still say to this day, like, I learn something new almost every transaction. Like, I don't think I'll ever not know what's going to turn at every turn. Every house is different. Every client is different. So
Yep.
I think there will always be like something I learn every time. And I have my core people. One has been in the in the industry for a long time. I've a few of them. I have some that are newer, and I get phone calls from those seasoned agents questioning what they're doing too. So, it's kind of nice to see this circle come around. Like, they've been doing this for so long, but they still call me and they're like, what do you think? What's your opinion here? Because really real estate can be done. There of course are wrong ways because we have ethics and things like that we have to follow. But there are, there's probably 5 answers for every one question. So,
Yep.
it's a matter of figuring out what works best for you and your clients and who you're servicing.
Yeah, and I think that the variability of, every day being different is both a blessing and a curse, because on one hand, getting started, having to plug so much information into your mind so quickly under short notice is super overwhelming for most people. But in the long term, I feel like it makes it such a great career choice for most people, because you don't really get bored, right? Because every house is different. Every client is different, just like you said. So,
Yep.
You will get it where it's very similar situations sometimes, but you're not going to get bored because you have to keep learning. You have to keep, learning about new situations and new circumstances, just like with those seasoned agents, because they don't know it all either, right? Even if you've been in the industry for 20, 30 years, there's still things you're learning. That's beautiful.
Our market changes every year. 2020 versus 2021 looks very different. So, we're typically not in the same market as we always are. So, like you said, there's so many factors: clients, agents, co-ops, the market itself. So
the sellers.
There's forever changing. There's so many personalities when it comes to real estate. And, for me, like I of course have my aunt who's a wonderful mentor. Her name's Anne-Marie Walsh. And I also have an agent in our office. Her name's Helen Irvine. She's been doing this a really long time. And, she always guides me in making sure I'm making these like right decisions here. And, so.
It's always wonderful having people you can reach out to and get some advice from, even if you've been in the industry for, so long. So that's wonderful that you have that. And, I feel like that as the market changes, people's needs change as well. But what would you say is, the biggest obstacle your clients have had to face when it comes to like buying or selling?
So I feel like the biggest obstacle is typically, clients wanting something that's not necessarily in their budget. I think that is typically where I see a lot of, downfalls is, hey, I love this house, but it's $450, but they're really only, able to stretch $370. And I think we're going to see that more and more now with interest rates climbing, that average. It's not about the sale price as much as the payment now. Payments are so much significantly higher than they were last year just based off the interest rates. So, we're definitely seeing that. So I think that a lot of buyers and sellers, because sellers have an expectation of what they thought their house was worth for so long and now it's not, I think that is the biggest hurdle because, they're just going to have to look at things a little bit differently. Like, what can I do in 10 years to this house? What can I do tomorrow that will make it, a livable place to be? Or, what can I do down the line that can extend this? I think clients need to start honing in and focusing on where they want to be and, more importantly, where they want to be and price point. And then take it from there based off of what they could do to the house in years to come. I remember when I purchased my house, I bought it in April. I did buy it off market, which was really wonderful. I had my sisters who are teachers. They're grade school teachers, wonderful teachers, but, their brain doesn't work like me when it comes to, seeing potential or just, real estate investing. They're just not, in that mindset, which is totally fine. But when they walked in my new house, they were like, oh my gosh, like, they were like, you bought this? This is what you bought? And I was like, now that I've been in here for 4 years, I've done some work to it. I've done some updating, and they're like, oh, I could live here now, So I think that it's a little bit harder for, the average consumer to see past these things. So I think, as a buyer, I think that buyers and sellers need to focus in more on what they're looking for, not what's right in front of them and what they need versus what's in front of them. And, going that way. And I think that, agents have to do that too. We have to get a little bit more creative on ways that we're going to, hone in on our clients. So, like I said before, I always say I'm a resource. So, in this kind of objection, I would be, providing resources for them to get their property to where they want it to be, or, what can we do? What can the seller do? Those kind of things to get us to a place where, we can actually love it. But I think that's the biggest thing right now is just being able to accept what they can afford. And I know it's always hard to not get everything you've always dreamed of in your first home or your second home. But I think that if you just gave it time and allowed a moment to sit, you could really turn that house into, what you really want it to be. So I think, we just have to get a little bit more creative as we move forward in the market.
Oh, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned about the cosmetics, because I do think that people tend to have unrealistic expectations as far as what they can get. And I'm kind of curious to hear your perspective on this, having been involved with television and production before. How much would you say that those kind of expectations have been influenced by shows like HGTV and stuff like that, maybe setting unrealistic expectations for people?
Yeah. So exactly that. I think that for me, the way that I like to go about that is just education. So, I don't want to burst any clients' bubbles because I want them to dream big and let's shoot for the stars and see what we can get. But, really reevaluating what they're looking for, how much they want to spend, and just educating them on like what this will look like for them, how much it's going to cost, what they're going to have to do. I love a wandering, brain as far as what they can possibly do in their house or where they want to go. Because I'm the same way. I drive down Yardley Borough and, dream one day that I will live in one of those big houses on the main street. So, I never want to cut those dreams apart because I want to be just like them as much as they want to be. But, more education, more explaining, even if I'm breaking their heart now, in 10 years, that dream might come true, So, but just dreaming is one thing, but really honing down on what you need to do to get there is really more important to me. So, you might not be able to afford like me. I'm in Bristolboro, not in Yardley Borough, but one day I'll be in Yardley Borough. So, my expectations of what I can afford now is this. So let me build my worth and my ability to get to that place. But I feel like, where you're at now does not need to be your life for the next 30 years. So I'm always just all about just educating them. Of course we all go through this as agents, but we have our buyer consults, our, expectations as a buyer, and then, realistically showing them properties that might fall within their budget. And, I think that, they figure this out faster than, I need to explain to them. So once I give them the resources that they need, they're able to make their own decisions that way. Because at the end of the day, they're adults, they're buying a house, and this is the biggest transaction of their life. So the more educated they can be about it, the better. So that's just my job. And then, what they choose to take from that is their choice.
Yeah, no, definitely. You want to be there and provide your experience and your expertise, and you want to provide, the knowledge and the tools that they need to make the most educated decision that they can. Because, as you said, this is the largest investment that most people are going to make in their lifetime. It's either going to be a house or transitioning to another house. Most people don't work with anything bigger than that. So, them being able to make a, educated decision of what they want to invest in is good. And I think that it's also good for people to see beyond just the cosmetic value of the house too, like you had mentioned, because, you could have a house that looks absolutely beautiful inside, but it has a major flooding problem where the basement floods every year, right? So that's a house that looks gorgeous, but is going to be probably a major investment as far as repairs in the future. Or you might have a house that maybe it's a little outdated. Maybe the kitchen is from the 70s and hasn't really been, updated cabinets, but it's functional. It works. Nothing's going to be breaking there for the time being. All the major systems are updated. So being able to essentially encourage people to focus on the things that are actually important, right? The roof, the heating system, the plumbing. If the house is really, really old, has the wiring been updated so that it's not on, fuse boxes and knobs and tubes? The stuff that really matter.
Yeah, of course. And I like to, and I go back to my Helen Irvine, who's an agent in my office. She always explained to me in the beginning, like, you're a conductor. I'm not buying this house, so I can only conduct the process here. So I'm going to take you along on this little train ride, and, I'm going to provide you with all the resources that you need. But at the end of the day, you're the decision maker, you're the buyer, or you're the seller. So, but I'm going to conduct you because I am the expert here. So I always like to use her saying is, I'm a conductor. I'm here to just provide tons of resources and get you from point A to point B. And, I kind of always stand by that.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful way of looking at it, conductor. First time I've heard that one. And I think that's a really nice way to put it, too. I'm going to hold on to that one. Because
got a lot of
everybody's situation is different, right? Somebody might want that stone farmhouse. They really want to have that charm. They don't mind if they have to put some extra money into still fixing insulation in it. Maybe that's just the situation that's good for them and they can afford it. And that's their decision to make. But if it's a brand new couple and they don't know what they're getting into, then education can go a long way to make sure that's actually what they want.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Definitely. And listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Keriann. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to buy a house or sell their house, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I'm very big on my social media, so I spend a lot of time on my Instagram and Facebook, how I really connect with my past clients, my current clients, my soon-to-be clients. So people call me Redhead in Real Estate PA is my little nickname. So you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Redhead in Real Estate PA.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And do you have a specific phone number or email you want people to reach out, or is just the social media good?
Yeah, so my email is pretty simple. It's Keriann, Keriann, at kw.com. So it doesn't get much easier than that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on to the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.